Captain Marcus Thompson had served the royal family for 12 years. His uniform was always pressed perfectly, his boots polished until they gleamed like mirrors. Every morning at 5 sharp, he would stand guard at the palace gates, watching, over the safety of people he had sworn to protect with his life. But today was different. Today he was finally going home. The London rain fell steadily as Marcus walked through the narrow streets of his neighborhood. He had been working double shifts for 3 weeks straight because of a security threat that never materialized. His shoulders ached, and his eyes burned from lack of sleep. All he wanted was to see his family, eat his wife Sarah's cooking, and maybe play a game of cards with his 15-year-old daughter Emma. Marcus lived in a small house on Maple Street, far from the grandeur of Buckingham Palace. The paint on his front door was peeling and the garden needed attention, but it was home. As he approached, he noticed the lights were off downstairs. That was strange. Sarah usually kept the kitchen light on when she was cooking dinner. He turned, his key quietly, not wanting to wake anyone if they were sleeping. The house felt unusually quiet. No television sounds, no music from Emma's room upstairs, no clatter of pots and pans from the kitchen. Marcus hung his coat on the hook by the door and called out softly, "Sarah? Emma? I'm home." No answer came. He walked into the living room, his heavy boots creaking on the wooden floor. The curtains were drawn tight, making the room feel smaller and darker than usual. On the coffee table, he saw Sarah's reading glasses and an open book, as if she had left in a hurry. Marcus climbed the stairs, each step echoing in the silence. At the top, he could see light coming from under Emma's bedroom door. He knocked gently. "Emma? Sweetheart, are you in there?" He heard movement inside, then Emma's voice. But it sounded different, smaller somehow. "Dad, is that you?" "Yes, it's me. Can I come in?" There was a long pause. Marcus frowned. Emma was usually excited when he came home from work. She would run downstairs and tell him about her day at school, her friends, her plans for the weekend. "Just a minute," Emma called. Marcus waited outside, her door, listening to sounds of movement inside. Drawers opening and closing, footsteps across the room. What was taking so long? Finally, the door opened just a crack. Emma peered out, but she kept her face turned away from the light in the hallway. Marcus could only see part of her profile. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly. "How was work?" Marcus noticed she was wearing a heavy sweater, even though the house felt warm. Her long brown hair was pulled forward, covering most of her face. "Work was fine, love. Where's your mother?" "She went to the grocery store. She'll be back soon." Marcus studied his daughter's posture. She was standing behind the door, using it as a shield. Her voice lacked its usual energy. "Are you feeling all right?" "You sound tired." "I'm okay. Just doing homework." Marcus reached out to touch her forehead, the way he always did when he thought she might be getting sick. But Emma quickly stepped back into her room. "I should get back to my studies," she said hurriedly. "Math test tomorrow." Before Marcus could respond, she closed the door. He stood in the hallway for a moment, confused. Something was definitely wrong. Emma loved math and usually asked for his help with difficult problems. She had never avoided his touch before. Marcus went to his own bedroom and changed out of his uniform. He pulled on comfortable jeans and an old sweater, trying to shake off the feeling that something was not right in his house. Maybe Emma was just growing up, becoming more independent. 15-year-olds could be moody, he told himself. He went downstairs to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Inside he found leftovers from what looked like several days ago. The milk was nearly empty, and there were only a few eggs left. If Sarah had gone grocery shopping, she had good reason to. Marcus made himself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table. Through the window, he could see Mrs. Henderson next door watering her flowers despite the rain. She was a kind woman who had lived on Maple Street for 30 years. She often chatted with Sarah over the fence and sometimes brought cookies for Emma. As he sipped his tea, Marcus thought about his work. Being a royal guard meant long hours, strict discipline, and constant alertness. He was trained to notice details, to spot when something was out of place or when someone was behaving strangely. These skills had kept the royal family safe countless times. But now, sitting in his own kitchen, those same instincts were telling him that something was wrong in his own home. The quiet house, Emma's strange behavior, Sarah's absence, none of it felt normal. Marcus decided to wait for Sarah to return. She would be able to explain what was happening. Maybe Emma had been having trouble at school, or perhaps there had been some kind of family emergency he didn't know about. He walked back upstairs and knocked on Emma's door again. "Emma, I'm making some dinner. Would you like to come down and eat with me?" "No, thank you, Dad. I'm not hungry." This was another red flag. Emma was always hungry after school. She was a growing teenager who could eat enormous portions and still ask for seconds. Marcus pressed his ear to the door, trying to hear what she was doing inside. He could hear her moving around, but no sounds of studying. No pages turning, no pencil scratching on paper. "Are you sure you're all right?" "Yes, Dad. Please, I just want to be alone right now." The sadness in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten. As a royal guard, he was trained to protect people. But how could he protect his own daughter when he didn't understand what was threatening her? He went back downstairs and waited for Sarah to come home, hoping she would have answers. But deep in his heart, Marcus knew that when the truth finally came out, it would be worse than anything he could imagine. Sarah's key turned in the front door at 8 o'clock that evening. Marcus heard her footsteps in the hallway, slower and heavier than usual. When she appeared in the kitchen doorway, he could see immediately that she looked exhausted. Her usually bright eyes were dim and her shoulders sagged as if she was carrying an invisible weight. "Hello, love," she said quietly, setting down 2 small grocery bags on the counter. Marcus stood up from the kitchen table and moved to embrace her, but Sarah turned away, busying herself with unpacking groceries. This was unusual. After his long shifts, Sarah always greeted him with a warm hug and asked about his day. "How was work?" she asked, keeping her back to him as she placed items in the refrigerator. "Sarah, look at me." She paused, her hand frozen on a carton of milk. "I'm tired, Marcus. It's been a long day. So is Emma. She won't come out of her room and she says she's not hungry. What's going on?" Sarah's shoulders tensed. She closed the refrigerator door but still didn't turn around. "Nothing's going on. Emma's just focusing on her studies." Marcus walked around the kitchen island so he could see his wife's face. When Sarah finally looked at him, he noticed dark circles under her eyes and worry lines he hadn't seen before. "How long has she been like this?" "Like what?" "Hiding in her room, not eating, acting strange." Sarah moved past him toward the stove. "She's not acting strange. She's just busy with school." Marcus caught her arm gently. "Sarah, please, talk to me. I can see something's wrong." For a moment, Sarah's composure cracked. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away and pulled free from his grasp. "I need to start dinner." Marcus watched his wife move around the kitchen with mechanical precision. She chopped vegetables without her usual cheerfulness, stirred pots without humming the song she normally sang while cooking. Everything about her behavior screamed that something terrible had happened. "Where were you today?" he asked. "The house was empty when I got home. I told you. Grocery shopping." "For 6 hours?" Sarah's knife stopped moving. She stared down at the cutting board, her knuckles white as she gripped the handle. "I had other errands to run." Marcus's training kicked in. When people lied, they avoided eye contact, they gave short answers, they changed the subject. Sarah was doing all of these things. "What kind of errands?" "Just things. Nothing important." Marcus moved closer to his wife. In his job, he had learned to read body language, to sense when someone was hiding something dangerous. Sarah was definitely hiding something. "Did something happen while I was at work?" Sarah's hands started shaking. She set down the knife and gripped the edge of the counter. Nothing happened. "Then why won't Emma come out of her room? Why won't she eat? Why do you look like you haven't slept in days?" "Because her father is never home." Sarah suddenly exploded, spinning around to face him. "Because you're always at that palace protecting strangers while your own family falls apart." Marcus was stunned. Sarah had always been proud of his job. She understood the importance of his work and had never complained about his schedule before. Sarah, that's not fair. You know I have to work these hours. Do you? Do you really? Or do you just prefer being there instead of being here? Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. Marcus reached for her, but she stepped backward. I don't prefer anything. I work to provide for this family. Well, congratulations. You've provided so well that you missed everything. Missed what? What did I miss? Sarah opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. She turned back to the counter and picked up the knife with trembling hands. Nothing. Forget I said anything. Marcus felt a cold fear settling in his stomach. As a royal guard, he was trained to protect against external threats. But what if the threat was already inside his house? What if something had happened to his family while he was away? I'm going to talk to Emma, he said. No. Sarah spun around so quickly that the knife clattered to the floor. Don't bother her, please. She needs space right now. Space from what? Sarah bent down to pick up the knife, and Marcus saw her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip it. From everything. From questions. From people staring at her. Staring at her? Why would people stare at Emma? Sarah's face went pale. She had said too much, and they both knew it. I meant people at school. You know how teenagers are, always worried about how they look. But Marcus knew his daughter. Emma was confident and outgoing. She had never been self-conscious about her appearance. And Sarah, I need you to tell me the truth. Has someone hurt Emma? The question hung in the air between them like a physical thing. Sarah's face crumpled and she started crying in earnest. I can't talk about it. Why can't you talk about it? Because if I say it out loud, it becomes real. And I can't handle it being real. Marcus's blood ran cold. His worst fears were being confirmed. Someone had hurt his daughter, and his wife was trying to protect her by keeping it secret. Who hurt her? Sarah shook her head frantically. No one. No one hurt her. She just fell down some stairs at school. That's all. Just an accident. But Marcus could see the lie in her eyes. He had spent years learning to spot deception, and Sarah was lying to him now. What stairs? When did this happen? Why didn't the school call me? They called me. I handled it. Everything's fine. If everything's fine, why are you crying? Why is Emma hiding in her room? Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She's embarrassed. You know how girls are about bruises. Bruises. Sarah had admitted there were bruises. Marcus felt his protective instincts surge. I want to see her. No. She doesn't want you to see her like this. Like what? Sarah realized she had revealed too much again. Her face went white. Like, upset. She's upset about falling down. Marcus didn't believe a word of it. His 15-year-old daughter was hiding in her room with bruises, his wife was lying to him, and everyone was acting like the world was ending. I'm going upstairs. Marcus, please. Don't push her. She's been through enough. Through what? What has she been through? But Sarah had already turned back to the counter, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Marcus climbed the stairs slowly, his mind racing. Someone had hurt his daughter. Someone had put bruises on her face, and somehow his family thought it was better to hide this from him than to ask for his help. As he reached Emma's door, Marcus made a silent promise. Whatever had happened to his daughter, whoever was responsible, he would find out the truth. And when he did, he would make sure they never had the chance to hurt her again. Marcus stood outside Emma's bedroom door, his heart pounding harder than it ever had during the most dangerous moments of his career. He had faced armed intruders, dealt with bomb threats, and protected the royal family from countless dangers. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. He knocked softly on the door. Emma, it's Dad. Can we please talk? Silence. Sweetheart, I know something's wrong. I just want to help. He heard movement inside the room, then Emma's voice, muffled and small. I'm fine, Dad. Really. Your mother told me you had an accident at school, about some stairs. Another long pause. When Emma spoke again, her voice was even quieter. Yeah. Just a stupid accident. Marcus pressed his hand against the door. Every instinct he had developed over 12 years of security work was screaming that this was not the truth. But Emma was his daughter, not a threat to be assessed and neutralized. He had to be gentle. Accidents happen, love. But hiding away isn't going to make you feel better. I'm not hiding, I don't want people to see me like this. Emma, I'm your father. I've seen you with chickenpox, with braces, with that terrible haircut you gave yourself when you were 10. Nothing could make me love you any less. He heard what sounded like a sob from inside the room. This is different, Dad. How is it different? Because Emma's voice broke. Because it's my fault. Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the chest. What's your fault? The accident. I should have been more careful. I should have watched where I was going. These were not the words of someone who had simply fallen downstairs. Marcus had investigated enough incidents to know the difference between an accident and something deliberate. Emma sounded like someone who had been made to feel responsible for what happened to her. Emma, accidents aren't anyone's fault. That's why they're called accidents. But if I had just listened, if I had done what I was supposed to do. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. Someone had convinced his 15-year-old daughter that she was responsible for her own injuries. Someone had made her feel guilty about being hurt. Who told you it was your fault? No one. I just know it was. Emma, please open the door. Let me see you. I can't. You'll be angry. Angry? Why would I be angry? Because I messed up. Because I let it happen. Marcus leaned his forehead against the door. His daughter was in pain both physically and emotionally, and she was afraid to let him help her. The helplessness he felt was worse than any threat he had ever faced. Sweetheart, I could never be angry at you for getting hurt, never, do you understand me? You say that now, but when you see what I look like, Emma, you are my daughter. You are the most precious thing in the world to me. Nothing could change that. Marcus heard footsteps approaching from downstairs. Sarah appeared at the top of the staircase, her face pale and anxious. Marcus, please, leave her alone. Leave her alone? Sarah, she's our daughter. She's hurt and scared, and she thinks it's her fault. Sarah's face crumpled. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me. Make it simple. Sarah looked at Emma's closed door, then back at Marcus. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She doesn't want you to know. Know what? About what really happened. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. What really happened? Sarah shook her head. I can't. I promised her I wouldn't tell. Promised her what? Sarah, if someone has hurt our daughter, I need to know. And then what? What will you do? Marcus didn't answer immediately because he knew his first instinct would be to find whoever was responsible and make them pay. But Sarah was right to be concerned. As a royal guard, he had resources and training that could make him dangerous if he lost control. I'll handle it properly, he said finally. Will you? Or will you do something that lands you in prison and leaves Emma without a father? Marcus stared at his wife. She knew him well enough to understand that his protective instincts could override his common sense when it came to his family. I won't do anything stupid, he said. Promise me. I promise I'll handle it the right way. But I need to know what happened. Sarah looked at Emma's door again, then motioned for Marcus to follow her downstairs. In the kitchen, she sat at the table and buried her face in her hands. It wasn't an accident, she whispered. Marcus sat down across from her, his hands flat on the table to keep them from shaking. I know. Someone hurt her on purpose. Who? Sarah looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I can't tell you that. Why not? Because Emma made me promise. Because she's terrified of what you'll do. Marcus thought about his daughter's words through the door. She was afraid he would be angry. She thought he would blame her. Someone had not only hurt her physically, but had convinced her that it was her fault. Sarah, whoever did this to Emma, they're still out there. They could hurt her again. They won't. How do you know? Because Emma promised she would stay away from them. Marcus's blood boiled. She promised to stay away? Sarah, do you hear yourself? Our daughter shouldn't have to promise to stay away from someone who hurt her. That person should be in jail. And what if Emma doesn't want to press charges? What if she doesn't want to go to court and relive what happened? What if she just wants to forget and move on? Marcus understood now why Emma was so afraid. She wasn't just dealing with physical injuries. Someone had violated her trust, hurt her, and then made her feel like she had to protect them by keeping quiet. Who was it? He asked quietly. Sarah shook her head. I can't. Was it someone from school? Sarah didn't answer, but something in her expression told Marcus he was getting close. A student? Still no answer, but Sarah's hands started shaking again. Teacher? Sarah's face went white, and Marcus knew he had hit the target. It was a teacher, he said, his voice deadly calm. Marcus, don't. A teacher hurt my daughter, and you want me to just let it go? I want you to think about Emma, about what's best for her. Marcus stood up from the table. His entire body was vibrating with rage, but he kept his voice steady. What's best for Emma is making sure this person can never hurt her or anyone else again. And what if pursuing this destroys her? What if it makes everything worse? Marcus looked toward the staircase, thinking about his daughter locked in her room, afraid to show her face, convinced that her assault was somehow her fault. Sarah, he said quietly, I don't think it could get much worse. Marcus spent the night sitting in his living room chair, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except his daughter upstairs and the teacher who had hurt her. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined Emma's face covered in bruises and his hands would clench into fists. At 6 a.m, he heard movement upstairs. Footsteps in the hallway, then the bathroom door closing. Marcus quietly climbed the stairs and waited. When Emma emerged from the bathroom, she was looking down at her feet and didn't see him at first. Good morning, sweetheart. Emma's head snapped. Up. And for the first time, Marcus saw her face clearly in the morning light streaming through the hallway window. His breath caught in his throat. Emma's left eye was swollen nearly shut, surrounded by deep purple bruises that extended down her cheek. Her lip was split and still looked tender. There were finger-shaped bruises on her neck as if someone had grabbed her throat. Emma saw the shock on his face and immediately covered her injuries with her hands. Don't look at me, she whispered, tears starting to flow. Please don't look at me. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. His little girl, his precious daughter, looked like she had been in a car accident. But these weren't accident injuries. These were the marks of someone who had deliberately tried to hurt her. Emma, he started, but his voice failed him. She turned to run back to her room, but Marcus stepped forward and gently caught her arm. Wait, please. Emma kept her face turned away, but she didn't try to pull free. Sweetheart, look at me. I can't. You're disgusted. Disgusted. Emma, no. Never. Marcus carefully put his hands on his daughter's shoulders and turned her to face him. When she finally looked up, he could see the pain in her eyes went much deeper than her physical injuries. You are beautiful, he said softly. You are perfect, and none of this is your fault. But no. Whatever happened, whatever someone told you, it was not your fault. Emma's face crumpled and she fell against her father's chest, sobbing. Marcus held her as gently as he could, feeling her whole body shake with grief and fear. I'm sorry, Daddy, she whispered against his shirt. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. I should have fought harder. I should have screamed. Marcus's vision went red. Someone had not only beaten his daughter, but had made her feel guilty for not fighting back hard enough. The level of cruelty involved made him sick. Who did this? To you? Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes. I can't tell you. Why not? Because you'll do something terrible, and then you'll go to prison. And it will be my fault. Marcus cupped his daughter's face in his hands, being careful not to touch her bruises. Emma, I am a royal guard. I am trained to handle dangerous situations properly. I will not do anything that would take me away from you. Promise? I promise. I will handle this the right way, but I need to know who hurt you. Emma closed her eyes. Mr. Davidson, Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. David Davidson taught English literature at Emma's school. He was young, probably early 30s, and popular with students. He coached the debate team that Emma had joined at the beginning of the year. Your English teacher? Emma nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. When did this happen? 3 days ago, after debate practice. Everyone else had left, and he said he wanted to talk to me about my essay. Marcus's hands were shaking now, but he kept his voice calm. What happened then? Emma looked down at her feet. He said my essay was inappropriate, that I had written things that were meant to get his attention in the wrong way. What kind of things? Nothing. I wrote about my family, about you being a royal guard, about how proud I am of you. But he said I was trying to be provocative. Marcus felt sick. Davidson had twisted Emma's innocent pride in her father into something inappropriate, then used it as an excuse to hurt her. He said I was being flirtatious, Emma continued, her voice getting smaller. He said girls like me always thought they could manipulate teachers, but he wasn't going to let me get away with it. And then? He grabbed me. He said he was going to teach me a lesson about respecting authority. Marcus had to grip the stair railing to keep himself upright. The full picture was becoming clear, and it was worse than he had imagined. He hit you? Emma nodded. He kept saying it was my fault, that I had brought it on myself by being inappropriate in my writing, that if I told anyone, no one would believe me because I was just a student trying to get out of trouble. Marcus understood now why Emma had been so afraid to tell him. Davidson had convinced her that she was responsible, that she had somehow invited the attack. Did he? Marcus couldn't finish the question. No, Emma said quickly. He didn't. He just hit me. A lot. And he grabbed my throat. He said next time I should think before I tried to seduce a teacher. Marcus closed his eyes and took deep breaths, trying to control his rage. Davidson had beaten his daughter and made her believe it was her fault. He had used his position of authority to abuse a child, then twisted the situation to make her feel guilty. Emma, you did nothing wrong. Nothing. Do you understand me? Emma nodded, but Marcus could see she didn't really believe it. Your essay about our family was not inappropriate. Being proud of your father is not flirtatious, and even if you had done something wrong, which you didn't, no adult has the right to put their hands on you. But he said, he lied. Everything he told you was a lie designed to make you keep quiet. Marcus pulled his daughter close again, and she buried her face against his chest. What are we going to do? She whispered. Marcus looked out the hallway window toward the street where normal people were starting their normal days. They had no idea that a monster was walking among them, teaching their children, looking for his next victim. We're going to make sure he can never hurt you or anyone else again, Marcus said quietly. How? Marcus thought about his promise to handle this properly. He thought about his training, his resources, his responsibility to protect not just the royal family, but his own family. Leave that to me. Dad, you promised you wouldn't do anything that would get you in trouble. Marcus looked down at his daughter's battered face and made a decision that would change everything. I promised I would handle this the right way, he said. And I will. Emma pulled back to look at him. What's the right way? Marcus's smile was cold and determined. The right way is making sure justice is served. But even as he said it, Marcus knew that justice through proper channels might not be enough. And if the system failed his daughter, he would have to decide just how far he was willing to go to protect her. Marcus spent the morning making phone calls while Emma slept and Sarah paced the kitchen like a caged animal. His first call was to Detective Inspector Patricia Wells, a friend from his military days who now worked with the Metropolitan Police. He explained the situation carefully, professionally, keeping his emotions in check. I'll need to interview Emma, Patricia said, and we'll need medical documentation of her injuries. She's afraid to come forward. Davidson convinced her it was her fault. That's textbook predator behavior, Marcus. The fact that he's already isolated her mentally means he's done this before. Marcus felt his blood chill. You think there are other victims? Teachers who abuse students rarely stop at one. We need to move fast before he has a chance to destroy evidence or intimidate other potential witnesses. After ending the call, Marcus went upstairs to talk to Emma. She was sitting by her window, staring out at the street below. "The police want to interview you," he said gently. Emma's face went pale. "Dad, I can't. What if no one believes me?" "They'll believe you, and we have evidence." "What evidence?" Marcus pointed to her face. "Your injuries tell a story, Emma. And I'm betting Davidson made mistakes." "What kind of mistakes? Did anyone see you going into his classroom after debate practice?" Emma thought for a moment. "Jenny Martinez saw me walking toward his room. She asked if I needed a ride home, but I told her Mr. Davidson wanted to see me." "Good. That's a witness who can place you there at the right time. But what if he says I attacked him first? What if he says I was being inappropriate?" Marcus sat down on Emma's bed. "Emma, you're 15 years old. He's an adult in a position of authority. Even if you had done something inappropriate, which you didn't, his response was criminal. But his word against mine won't be his word against yours. Patricia thinks there might be other victims." Emma's eyes widened. "Other girls he hurt? It's possible. Predators don't usually stop at one victim." Emma was quiet for a long time, staring out the window. Finally, she turned to look at her father. "If there are other girls and I don't speak up, he might hurt them too. That's not your responsibility, sweetheart. But yes, if we can stop him, we might prevent other girls from going through what you went through." Emma took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll talk to the police." That afternoon, Detective Inspector Wells came to their house. She was a kind woman in her 40s with gentle eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She interviewed Emma in the living room while Marcus and Sarah waited in the kitchen. Marcus could hear Emma's voice through the thin walls, sometimes strong, sometimes breaking with emotion, as she relived what Davidson had done to her. Every word was like a knife in Marcus's heart. After 2 hours, Patricia emerged from the living room. "She's very brave," Patricia told Marcus and Sarah. "Her story is consistent and detailed. She's clearly telling the truth." "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "We arrest Davidson. We search his classroom and his home. We interview other students to see if there are more victims." Marcus nodded. "When?" "Tomorrow morning. We'll pick him up at school before classes start." That evening, Marcus tucked Emma into bed for the first time since she was little. She looked small and vulnerable under her blankets, but there was something different in her eyes. Some of the fear had been replaced by determination. "Dad?" "Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for believing me. Always, no matter what. And thank you for not doing something crazy." Marcus smiled. "The day isn't over yet." Emma laughed a little, which was the first time Marcus had heard that sound since coming home. It gave him hope that his daughter would be okay eventually. The next morning, Marcus called in sick to work. He couldn't concentrate on protecting the royal family when his own family was in crisis. Instead, he drove to Emma's school and parked across the street watching. At 7:30, he saw Patricia and 2 other officers enter the building through the main entrance. At 7:45, they emerged with David Davidson in handcuffs. Marcus studied the man who had hurt his daughter. Davidson was younger than Marcus had expected, with brown hair and an average build. He looked like any normal person, which somehow made what he had done even more horrifying. As the police car pulled away, Marcus felt a mix of satisfaction and lingering anger. Davidson was arrested, but that was just the beginning. There would be a trial, assuming Davidson didn't plead guilty. Emma would have to testify. The whole ordeal would be dragged out for months, maybe years. Marcus's phone rang. It was Patricia. "We found something in Davidson's desk," she said. "A folder with photos and personal information about several female students, including Emma. And there's more." "More what?" "We found evidence that he's been grooming other girls through social media. Inappropriate messages, requests for private meetings. Marcus, this guy is a serial predator." Marcus gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. "How many girls?" "We're still investigating, but at least 4 that we know of so far. Emma may have been his first physical victim, but she definitely wasn't his first target. When Marcus got home, he found Emma and Sarah in the kitchen, drinking tea and talking quietly. Emma looked up when he entered, and he could see hope in her eyes for the first time in days. "They arrested him," she said. "It wasn't a question. They did. And Emma, you were right to come forward. Patricia found evidence that he was targeting other girls too," Sarah gasped. "Other girls? From Emma's school?" Marcus nodded. "At least 4. Emma, by speaking up, you may have saved other girls from going through what you went through." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't tears of fear or shame. They were tears of relief. "So it really wasn't my fault?" "It was never your fault. Not for 1 second. Emma stood up and hugged her father tightly. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know." That afternoon, Patricia called again with more news. 3 other girls had come forward after hearing about Davidson's arrest. They all had similar stories of inappropriate behavior, though Emma appeared to be the only one he had physically assaulted. "The Crown Prosecution Service is confident they can get a conviction," Patricia told Marcus. "With 4 victims willing to testify, plus the evidence we found in his possession, Davidson is looking at serious prison time." "How long?" "With the assault charges and the evidence of grooming behavior, probably 10 to 15 years. Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Justice would be served, and Davidson would be off the streets for a long time. 2 weeks later, Emma returned to school. She was nervous, but she held her head high as she walked through the halls. Some students stared at the fading bruises on her face, but others came up to her and thanked her for her courage. "You're a hero," Jenny Martinez told her at lunch. "My little sister is in 8th grade, and she said all the girls are talking about how brave you were." Emma smiled. "I don't feel like a hero. I feel like I just did what I had to do." That evening, Marcus found Emma doing homework at the kitchen table, just like she used to before everything happened. She looked up when he entered. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When you first came home and saw that something was wrong, how did you know?" Marcus thought about it. "Training, I suppose. After 12 years as a Royal Guard, you learn to notice when things don't feel right. Will you teach me?" "Teach you what?" "How to notice when things don't feel right. How to trust my instincts. How to protect myself." Marcus felt a surge of pride. His daughter had been through hell, but instead of letting it make her afraid, she was determined to become stronger. "I'd be honored to teach you." Emma smiled, and Marcus realized that while Davidson had tried to break his daughter's spirit, he had actually made her stronger. She had faced her worst fear, told the truth despite her terror, and helped protect other girls in the process. "Dad?" "Yes?" "I'm proud to be your daughter." Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. "And I'm proud to be your father." 3 months later, David Davidson pleaded guilty to all charges and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. He would also be placed on the sex offender registry for life, ensuring that he could never work with children again. Emma was in court for the sentencing. When the judge read the verdict, she squeezed Marcus's hand and whispered, "It's really over." Marcus squeezed back. "Yes, sweetheart, it's really over." 6 months after David Davidson's conviction, life in the Thompson household had found a new rhythm. Emma's physical bruises had long since healed, and the emotional wounds were slowly mending as well. She had returned to the debate team under a new coach and was excelling in her studies. More importantly, she had become an advocate for other students who faced similar situations. Marcus had been promoted to senior captain at the Royal Guard, partly due to his exemplary handling of his family crisis while maintaining his professional duties. His superiors respected how he had pursued justice through proper channels despite the personal nature of the crime. One evening in late autumn, Marcus was sitting in his study when Emma knocked on the door. "Dad, can I come in?" "Of course, sweetheart." Emma entered carrying a thick folder. She had grown taller over the past months and carried herself with a confidence that reminded Marcus of Sarah when they first met. "I wanted to show you something," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. She opened the folder and pulled out several letters. These are from girls at other schools. They heard about what happened with Mr. Davidson, and they wrote to me." Marcus looked at the letters, recognizing the careful handwriting of teenage girls. "What do they say?" "Different things. Some of them had teachers who made them uncomfortable. Others had experiences like mine. A few just wanted to thank me for speaking up because it made them feel less alone." Emma pulled out another section of the folder. "And these are from parents, mothers mostly, saying they're grateful that someone Emma's age showed them it's okay to report these things." Marcus felt a familiar surge of pride in his daughter. "What are you thinking of doing with all this?" Emma's eyes lit up. "I want to start a program, something at schools where students can learn about inappropriate behavior from adults and how to report it safely. That's a big undertaking. I know. But Detective Wells said she would help. And there's a charity organization that works with schools on safety programs. They want to develop something specifically about this issue." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "What would my role be?" Emma grinned. "I was hoping you'd ask. They want someone with security experience to help design the program. Someone who understands how predators operate and how to protect potential victims. You've really thought this through." "I've had a lot of time to think. And Dad, I realized something important." "What's that?" Emma's expression became serious. "What happened to me was terrible, but hiding from it would have been worse. Not just for me, but for all those other girls who might have been hurt if we hadn't stopped him." Marcus nodded. His daughter had learned a lesson that many adults never grasped. Sometimes the right thing to do was also the hardest thing to do. "There's something else," Emma continued. "I got a letter from the prison." Marcus's blood chilled. "From Davidson?" "No, from another inmate. He said Davidson talks about what he did, and he's not sorry. He still blames me and the other girls." Marcus felt his old anger flare, but Emma held up her hand. "But here's the thing, Dad. It doesn't matter what he thinks. It doesn't matter if he's sorry or not. What matters is that he can't hurt anyone else." Marcus stared at his daughter, amazed by her wisdom. "You're absolutely right. I used to lie awake at night wondering if he felt bad about what he did, if he understood how much he hurt me. But I realized that was just another way of letting him control my thoughts." Emma stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the streetlights were coming on, and neighbors were arriving home from work, just as Marcus had that evening months ago when everything changed. "Detective Wells told me something interesting last week," Emma said. "She said 3 more men have been arrested in the past 6 months, teachers and coaches who were reported by students who heard about my case." "Really?" "Really. She said my story gave other girls the courage to speak up." Emma turned back to her father. "Dad, remember when you asked me what the right way was to handle what happened?" "I remember. I think the right way wasn't just getting Davidson arrested. The right way was showing other girls that they don't have to suffer in silence." Marcus stood and joined his daughter at the window. "You know what I'm most proud of?" "What?" "That you took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something that helps other people." Emma smiled. "I learned that from you." "From me?" "You spend your days protecting people you don't even know personally. You put your life on the line for strangers because you believe it's the right thing to do. I just decided to do the same thing in my own way." Marcus put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. "Your mother and I are incredibly proud of you. Even though I'm not the same person I was before." Marcus considered this. Emma was right. The carefree 15-year-old who had once lived in this house was gone, replaced by someone more serious, more aware of the world's dangers. But she was also stronger, braver, and more compassionate. "You're not the same person," he agreed. "You're better." Emma leaned against her father's shoulder. "I still have bad days, days when I feel angry or scared or ashamed. That's normal, sweetheart. Healing isn't a straight line. But the good days are starting to outnumber the bad days." Marcus smiled. That's all anyone can ask for. They stood together at the window, watching their neighbors' lives unfold in the warm glow of the streetlights. Somewhere in the distance, Marcus could hear sirens. Someone else was having their worst day, but there were people trained to help them through it. Dad? Yes? Thank you for not doing something crazy when you found out what happened. Marcus chuckled. I came very close. But you didn't. You did the right thing, even though it was harder. The right thing is usually harder. Emma nodded. That's something else I learned from you. A few minutes later, Sarah called them for dinner. As they walked toward the kitchen, Emma stopped and looked back at her father. Dad, there's one more thing I want you to know. What's that? I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor. And I'm going to make sure other girls know they can be survivors too. Marcus felt his chest swell with pride and love for his remarkable daughter. She had faced her darkest hour and emerged not broken, but unbreakable. I believe you will, he said, and I'll be right there to help you. Emma grinned. I wouldn't have it any other way. As they joined Sarah in the kitchen for dinner, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that evening when he'd come home to find his family in crisis. The house felt warm and safe again. Emma was laughing at something Sarah had said. The future looked bright, but most importantly, Marcus had learned that sometimes the greatest act of protection wasn't physical strength or tactical training. Sometimes it was simply believing someone when they needed to be believed, standing by them when they needed support, and helping them find their own strength to fight back. His daughter had taught him that the right way to handle injustice wasn't always the most satisfying way, but it was the way that created lasting change, prevented future victims, and turned survivors into advocates. As they sat down to eat together as a family, Marcus knew that Emma would be just fine. Better than fine, actually. She would be extraordinary.